Now, there are 2 points that I'd like to make with regard to how innovation takes place here, and some of the moves that are being made right now that are really starting to take those first steps towards creating a new business growth and development scenario. If you look at some of the acquisitions over the past several years by global companies, you see a pattern of acquiring Russian brains, not taking them out of the country to make them Americans or Frenchmen or Germans or Englishmen. Companies are coming in right now and they're actually acquiring some of the old institutes and turning them into research and development centers, turning them into technical education centers. In some case, you'll find in the oil and gas industry that there will be a global training center, for instance, like for Schlumberger. You'll find one in Houston, you'll find one in Aberdeen, and you'll find one somewhere out in Cumin. The critical question to ask is what happens to individuals who choose to leave these research centers after some period of time, who are trained in these research centers, or who maybe work for a large business for a period of time and decide to leave that large business and try to go out on their own. Are they going to have the type of support that they need? A scientist who comes up with some lab bench patentable product, are they going to have the support to turn that into a commercial idea? Something that could become a small business, grow into a medium-sized business, eventually be acquired by a large global business. One thing that's being done right now in Russia that I think is absolutely fantastic is the technopark concept. And we, in fact, have done a lot of reporting on this, particularly on what's being done in Cumin, which is very much a world-class operation. The Russian government has been spending money very wisely in recent years to establish these technoparks. In these technoparks, you find examples where there are centers of basic Russian scientific research. There are private companies that are involved. Oftentimes, in Cumin, for instance, you'll find Baker Hughes, Schlumberger, KCA Deutag. You'll find foreign companies that are involved in the technopark itself. You'll find private finance. You'll find academic support through the local university. In the case of Cumin, you find Cumin University. There's also been a lot written about the technology incubators that are being developed in the Novosibirsk region, as another example. Again, knowing that we've got a shortage of time, I guess my message is that small is beautiful, that small actually is what you have to look at in terms of developing a new generation of economy. You can talk about the money that is coming out of the highest levels of the government sector that are funding oil and gas development operations, but it's the service companies, it's the equipment manufacturers that create jobs and economies of scale in the regions that actually put people to work. And I'd like to leave you with just a couple of thoughts. And we're going to be writing about this actually in a series of articles that we'll be publishing in the autumn. And anyone who feels strongly about this who'd like to talk to me or any of my colleagues, I'd really like to get your input. But you've all heard of Baker Hughes, for example. Baker Hughes grew over a century of acquisitions from many, many small family-run companies. It started as the Hughes, H-U-G-E-S, Tools Company. It was founded by two fellows, one of them, Howard R. Hughes, who in 1908 developed a two-cone drill bit. They went out and sold that drill bit, and that was the start of the Hughes side of Baker Hughes. Baker was one guy. It was R.C. Baker. He was an inventor and an entrepreneur, and he got a patent for an advancement in well casing technology. Those two got together, you had a bigger company, everything else is history. Halliburton. You know, Halliburton employs 50,000 people in nearly 70 countries. But in 1919, there was one guy, Earl Halliburton. He borrowed a wagon, he borrowed somebody's mules, and he borrowed a pump. And then he built a wooden mixing box and started an oil well cementing business in Duncan, Oklahoma. And I think you've all heard of Rita. That's a Schlumberger subsidiary. And Rita, as you probably know, stands for Russian Electric Dynamo by Artyunov. And I'm sure everyone knows that this invention was created for Russian oil wells, but for the company to actually get a start, the entrepreneur had to go west. I'd like to say that Oil and Gas Eurasia supports President Medvedev's dream. With regard to the oil and gas industry, we hope that we can see more Russian-born Howard Hugheses, more Russian-born R.C. Bakers and Earl Halliburtons. And we'd like to see that the next time Mr. Artyunov has some initiative, he can actually put that initiative to work in his motherland. And the last thing is,